This is the driver's passenger door. I've just been cleaning it up and looking for the extent of the damage. All this section here is rusted out, has to be remade. The bottom of the door, bottom 2 inches across the bottom, have to be cut out. I guess that's the easy bit, but what I've found is that this timber here is not only loose, but it's warped up in the centre. To get this out, and I'll have to get it out to replace it, I'm actually going to have to take the skin right off the door frame. So this one's going to be a bit longer to repair, but I'll start by removing the entire skin. That will then let me get to the timber. I'll then remake the timber and then pile the skin back over the door frame. I won't make this section yet. What I'll do is I'll leave that on to keep the shape of the door. So I'll take the skin off, replace that, put the skin back on, and then I'll remake this. So that's what I'm about to do. I've now completed welding the bottom section of the rear door. Just welded that up. I've just done a very brief cross with a panel hammer. Got a couple of small dents to take out, but I'll look at that when I try and fit the skin back on the door frame itself. Because what I've done is I've actually remade the door frame. It now has a new timber section across the top and a new bottom panel that I've made up and riveted on. So what I'll be doing next is to actually put the skin back on the door frame. I'm working out exactly how much I need to straighten the bottom, or whether I need to curve it slightly to fit the bottom panel. I've now put the skin back on the rear door. It took a little bit of reshaping down the bottom, and also I found when I fitted the door that the panel gaps weren't right, so I've actually had to put a bit of MIG welding in around here. I've still got to shape this up a bit more, but it's fitting much better than it was before. Everything went together well. All the panels seemed to fit, the doors aligned properly, the window frame went in alright. I mounted the lock fits, closes perfectly. I've got to rebuild the bottom of the rear window. The metal that holds the winder mechanism on the bottom of the window has actually got rust in it, and it's swelled out with rust flakes, which means that when the window winder mechanism tries to wind up, it jams. So I'm actually going to have to remake that to make the window mechanism work properly. But all in all, the door has come up quite well. I'll just put a skim of filler over the top of that to fill the little depressions in the weld, and then that door will be finished. Sometimes it's the simplest things that cause most of the problems. What I have here is the window channel on the rear window on the driver's side, and what's happened with it is that when it sits in in place. With the window, the water comes down, goes into the channel and rusts it out, which it's rusted the channel section out. And in doing that, it means that you've got to remake a section to allow the window winder mechanism to lift the window up and down. The problem with it is, this section has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folds. Now I tried to make it out of a flat sheet, spent close to 2 hours and ended up in quite a mess. So what I decided to do is to actually make it out of 2 pieces of steel, less folds, but weld them together, and that's the result there. So I'm actually able to create a bead that the window winder mechanism will run on. Now what I'm about to do is to put the whole thing back together. I drilled the spot welds out. I'll re-weld those with plug welds, and I should end up with a nice new window channel with the ability to house the window winder mechanism inside it. So I'll just mount this up and then I'll spot weld it. Well, I'll spot weld it together alright on the back there. The section works alright, which is good. A little bit tight, but it needs a bit of grease in there, which I haven't put in there yet. And then she should be fine. All in all, it took about 4 to 5 hours work, but the end result is all you're after. Whilst it did fit after I rebuilt the door, the gap along this side was only just clearing, so less than 1 millimetre. In some places probably 1/2 millimetre, if that. So what I've actually done is to remove 2 millimetres of metal all the way down the door and then re-weld up to get an even gap along that side of the door. The same problem I had on this side. Obviously when I reskinned the door and remade the frame, I didn't do it exactly as it was originally. So this gap here was extremely tight, once again less than 1/2 millimetre, and I've actually once again removed about 2 millimetres of metal along this side. Down here I've actually had to add metal, and all in all the gaps around that door now are also quite even. On this section, this gap here between the window frame and the rear window, there was a tremendous difference between the gap at the top here and the bottom. It was something like 4 mil gap at the bottom and an 8 mil at the top. What I found though is that this section of metal here screws onto the window frame, but behind it had a couple of packing pieces. Now what I've actually done, removed those packing pieces and put a timber packing piece the full width, and once again I've ended up with a nice even gap on the window frame. The gap on this side is also even all the way up, and so all in all the doors now are ready to basically finish off, but certainly they fit. The door locks are operating well and they're closing properly, so there's really no need to do any more work on those at the present time.